I'm going to tell you my predictions, but I want to say this first, if you allow me to. This journey didn't start in 2018 when I came to YouTube and I started talking about Bad Boy and Diddy and his character.
We gather outside Manhattan Federal Court on a thick, humid July morning. And the moment Gene Deal steps up to the mic, the air crackles with tension. We watch him roll his shoulders back, scan the ocean of flashing cameras, and say in a voice that doesn't waver, Sean Diddy Combs will never walk free again. The words hit like a stone dropped into Stillwater ripples shooting through reporters, live streamers, and curious bystanders leaning in to catch every syllable. But Gene isn't just some outsider with a grudge. He was Diddy's personal bodyguard during the peak years of Bad Boy entertainment, and today, he stands before the world not as a forgotten figure from hip-hop's golden age, but as a man determined to pull back the final curtain on a mogul who built his empire on platinum records and polished illusions.
This journey started right after the Notorious Big was murdered, and even before then. But me conversating and talking about Diddy in the streets of New York was verified by somebody who actually came home, and that was Roger Bonds in probably 2007 or 2008, because Roger Bonds was a dude in the street getting money.
We listen closely because when someone from the inside says life behind bars is inevitable, those words don't just stir gossip, they demand a spotlight. We track the reactions in real time. A seasoned court reporter whispers into a digital recorder, two social media commentators hammer out rapid-fire posts, and a pair of network correspondents, already mid-sentence on live feeds, pivot their scripts to quote Gene's explosive statement. This isn't just the highlight of the morning, it's the hook for the day's coverage, may be the entire summer trial. A former trusted bodyguard now predicts lifelong prison for the man who once turned party anthem.
Dishonest, violent, horrible. A promiscuous swinger who lied to and cheated on multiple partners. Incredibly, that's how Sean Diddy Combs' own lawyers described the billionaire music mogul, currently facing serious trafficking charges in a New York court.
Into an empire spanning fashion, TV, and fame. The heat outside is brutal, but the stakes inside are even hotter, and we can feel it that thick. Invisible pressure of celebrity obsession and looming justice settling over Foley Square like a heavy, unmoving storm cloud. We peer through the courthouse doors as proceedings begin upstairs, where prosecutors begin laying out charges that read like the plot of a scandalous crime drama: racketeering, conspiracy, transporting companions across state lines for illicit encounters, and running a tightly controlled operation that allegedly fused the glamour of music with the mechanics of intimidation. The maximum penalties: life behind bars. And as we scan the courtroom and the growing mountain of exhibits, we realize if jurors agree on every count, Sean Diddy Combs could join the rare list of entertainment giants whose empires were erased by federal judgment. Suddenly, Gene Deal's bold prediction doesn't sound like hype, it sounds like a countdown. One eye on the courtroom clock, the other on the incoming lineup of witnesses. We brace for what's next. Are you surprised by the evidence already coming out in this criminal trial? No, I'm not surprised. I lived through it. I saw the violence, I witnessed it. As court breaks for lunch, we rewind the key players. Cassie Ventura, Diddy's former partner whose civil lawsuits sent shockwaves through the industry last year, already delivered haunting testimony of late-night freak-offs, strangers brought in, substances passed around, and luxury hotel suites booked under the alias Frank Black. Kid Cudi followed her on the stand, recalling the night a flaming bottle exploded against his parked car. What he says was retaliation for stepping away from Diddy's circle. Each testimony adds another brushstroke to a picture prosecutors want jurors to see: private gatherings, threats, hush money, sudden settlements. And then there's the most chilling rumor of Ola Blackmail Vault, a supposedly hidden stash of video recordings said to feature recognizable faces in highly compromising scenes. Prosecutors haven't officially entered it into evidence, but multiple witnesses mention missing hard drives, vanished studio logs, and footage that no one wants to admit exists. The rumor lingers in every recap, every livestream, every post-hearing podcast. Outside, a secondary saga brews. A YouTuber known as Donut spends the morning provoking Gene Deal, mocking him as Uncle Phil and questioning his integrity. Tensions flare, a scuffle breaks out. Eyewitness accounts conflict. Some claim Gene swung first, others say he simply reached for Donut's gold chain. Courthouse deputies review video, find no clear punch, and ask Gene to stay away for a few days. But what matters isn't just the bralettes, what it symbolizes. Public spaces around this trial are turning volatile. With reputations, internet fame, and real emotions all colliding, even sidewalk confrontations become thumbnail material and algorithm bait. When I started calling out Puff's character, it was after Big got murdered. Even though I still worked for Bad Boy, I had to speak up about who he really was. They needed me more than I needed them. Later that same afternoon, Gene sits quietly behind the prosecution table when a live streamer confronts him about an unverified claim involving minors from 2004. He lowers his eyes and walks away. That silence, intentional or not, feels significant. Silence can be incriminating, or it can be protective. Or maybe, in this circus, it's the only smart legal move left. But whatever it means, it reminds us. Even whistleblowers sometimes stood far closer to the fire than they admit. A lot of these guys talking online don't know. I was a New York State parole officer. I ran elite investigations. I did security. At Tiana Towers, I managed security teams at Eastchester Housing. I ran clubs. I know what I saw. Back in court, the defense rolls out a clear strategy. They say Combs simply lived a consensual, sexually adventurous lifestyle, and now prosecutors are weaponizing morality to turn his bedroom into a battleground. They argue that Cassie and others are motivated by headlines and big payouts. But, strangely, the defense avoids putting any character witnesses on the stand. It feels like a retreat. Maybe they don't want to risk cross-examination where prosecutors could bring up everything from hotel receipts to hush money emails. And so, the jury is left comparing a mountain of prosecution evidence against little more than polished arguments from Diddy's team. How many people moved through his orbit? How many could this have happened to? And how did it go unchecked for so long? The tension builds as deliberations approach. We watch jurors pass notes, scan transcripts, and request specific testimonies. They ask to rehear Cassie's vivid recollection of an LA hotel video, the same clip that went viral after airing on cable TV. They also want to revisit escort Daniel Phillips' statement, describing Cassie curled up and terrified inside a Midtown suite. These focused requests tell us jurors are zeroing in on what prosecutors need most: a pattern. In RICO trials, patterns are everything, and every detail they revisit could swing the verdict toward or away from a guilty ruling. As the trial moves into its second phase, we zoom out. We look at the ecosystem that enabled it all. Assistants testified they booked rooms, arranged transportation, and wired money from business accounts. A former security guard spoke of an internal culture, ruled by fear and favors. And quietly, legal blogs hint at a deeper layer: that Gene Deal's shift from employee to public critic may have come with a sealed cooperation agreement. Did he begin gathering evidence years ago? Did he record conversations, photograph documents, save old call logs? Federal filings don't say. But the timeline speaks volumes. Gene's YouTube interviews picked up in 2018, civil lawsuits exploded in 2023, and the unsealed indictment dropped in 2024. The overlap is impossible to ignore. People want me to stay quiet, Gene Deal says, because I tell young men, it's okay to go to work. It's okay to get an education. It's okay to be positive in your community. You don't need to be a street dude just because you grew up around them. Away from the courtroom, a new layer emerges, one tied to blood and legacy. Christian King Combs drops a new track called Diddy Free, with the formerly Kanye West listed as executive producer. The hook is clear: no sleep till we see Diddy free. The verses lash out at critics, witnesses, and what Christian calls a smear campaign. We notice the song dropped at midnight. The same day, closing arguments began. Then there's his courthouse appearance, wearing a free Sean Combs t-shirt until a bailiff forces him to flip it inside out. That single moment speaks volumes about the sharp divide between courtroom evidence and family loyalty. That he also appears at the courthouse, though he stays in an overflow room and refuses to answer questions about his relationship with Diddy. These high-profile cameos don't affect the jury, who are strictly instructed to ignore outside influence, but they do sway public opinion. Gene continues speaking to the press, saying, "Nothing I ever said could have put that man behind bars. Whatever secrets got exposed, they were buried long before I ever opened my mouth." Then comes the jury's note. For charges have been decided, but the panel is still split on the big one: racketeering. Judge Arun Subramanian tells them to keep going. Complexity, he reminds them, is no excuse for a partial verdict. We double-check federal guidelines. If Combs is convicted on the trafficking and transportation counts, he faces a minimum of 15 years up to life depending on aggravating factors. But if the racketeering charge sticks, it's life behind bars. That one charge could determine whether Diddy ever walks free again or dies in prison. We focus on one juror previously flagged for hesitating to follow instructions. Court documents describe him only as a 51-year-old veterinarian with a background in molecular biology. Insiders whisper he's dissecting legal terms like enterprise and coercion with scientific precision. The defense quietly hopes he'll hold out. The prosecution remains confident repeated transcript reviews will shift him, but everyone agrees a single juror can derail the whole racketeering verdict. Inside court, Combs bows his head and folds his hands. Some say he's praying. After the session, he looks at family, mouths "love you," taps his chest, and disappears down a private corridor with U.S. Marshals. Cameras catch his reflection. In a glass panelized red, posture firm, we freeze the image in our minds. Whether it's a conviction or a miracle acquittal, this will be part of the story forever. Outside, day 3 of jury deliberations brings new buzz. The rumored blackmail vault resurfaces. Social media sleuths dig into property records, connect suite numbers to shell corporations, and cite anonymous claims from a retired assistant who allegedly saw stacks of hard drives in a walk-in safe. None of it is in evidence yet, but online, the theory explodes. Speculation grows that far more names, scenes, and payoffs are buried just beyond the edge of this case. Back on the ground, industry reaction turns cold. A major retail brand quietly scrubs Diddy from its fragrance ads. A streaming giant rotates bad boy tracks out of a flagship playlist. Executives are done waiting. They're betting that staying silent is riskier than cutting ties. Marketing analysts tell us that even if the verdict is mixed, the stench of scandal can tank a brand. Advertisers, once spooked, rarely come back. Gene Deal remains a flashpoint. Critics ask why he didn't speak up sooner. Why didn't he intervene? Supporters counter that prosecutors wouldn't rely on him if he had skeletons that couldn't be explained. We dig into public records. Yes, he was a New York State parole officer, then moved into private security, managing residential contracts before linking up with Bad Boy. That adjacent background gives him a certain credibility. He's clearly comfortable under oath, but there are still unanswered questions, and defense lawyers are likely saving them, just in case a retrial happens due to a hung jury. For now, prosecutors keep Gene out of the witness box. He remains in the spotlight, but only in front of cameras. His story is commentary for now. They laid it all out. Everything Puff known to the world, as Diddy Osley did. The trafficking, the kidnappings, victims snatched from homes, locked in warehouses for hours, hooked up to polygraph machines. It doesn't sound like music industry drama. It sounds like something else entirely. We look ahead to what happens if he's found guilty. Just the transportation charges alone carry a baseline sentence of 15 years, but add aggravating factors using company funds, repeated intimidation, firearms, and the number could soar. A racketeering conviction that opens the door to life in prison. The defense will argue his clean record, his philanthropy, his parenting. Prosecutors will argue the scope, the pattern. The money trail, and witness after witness alleging bodyguards were used to silence dissent. We tread carefully with language because guilt belongs to the jury. But even before their final word, the cultural fallout has begun. Streaming platforms are replacing his music. Radio stations are subbing his tracks for other 90s hits. Artists who once idolized him are now quoting this trial in Instagram stories, warning about power and manipulation. We've seen it before. The reevaluations of Michael Jackson, the R. Kelly erasure. This feels similar and immediate. Then, the twist, a partial verdict after 2 full days. The jury has agreed on 4 charges, but they're split on racketeering, the most serious one, and under court rules, that means none of the decisions are read yet. Everything stays sealed. We all hold our breath. By late afternoon, on day 3, whispers emerge. The jury may work through the holiday weekend. Some say a quick verdict helps the defense. Others argue slow deliberation means they're carefully piecing together the big charge. We've learned not to trust speculation, but we document every angle. We zoom out to the long arc. The unsolved 1997 drive-by that killed Biggie Smalls still hangs in the air. No direct link to Combs, but the suspicion has never vanished. Gene Deal says his distrust of Puff began that very night, whether every detail is accurate or not. That moment was the first crack in the shiny armor, warning that behind the glitz, something darker might exist. Now, things get murky. The racketeering charge contains all those other allegations: trafficking, threats, coercion. So even if the jury agrees on predicate crimes, if they don't believe Diddy was running an enterprise, they can't convict on that top count. Meanwhile, Diddy sits in court flipping through Norman Vincent Peale's The Power of Positive Thinking and the Happiness Advantage by Sean Aker. Is it PR? A coping mechanism? A last-minute transformation? Reporters asked, he gives no answer. But optics matter. Judges do weigh remorse, posture, and public tone during sentencing. Then a new rumor. The jury might have reached consensus on racketeering. Court staff won't confirm. 2 possible outcomes. If they agree, the judge could read the verdict immediately. If not, everything pauses for the holiday. Either way, every hour that passes complicates appeals, raises the pressure, and frays nerves. Industry execs text us blunt reactions. One says, even if he walks, those stories are out there. No brand wants to explain that in a boardroom. That's the quiet truth. Perception is the real judge, now, and public memory doesn't wait for verdicts. We track the hashtags. Streams are outperforming entire sports leagues this week. Hallway footage with no audio pulls hundreds of thousands of live viewers. This isn't just justice, it's spectacle. And that spectacle blurs fact, fiction, and consequence. Here's the legal reality. The jury only needs to agree that two criminal elements occurred within a coordinated enterprise. That's racketeering. And they're stuck on the first question. Do you believe Diddy led a criminal organization, yes or no? If even one juror says no, it could be a mistrial on the most serious charge. Morning of day 4. We return to Foley Square. Coffee in hand, eyes on the courtroom door. The jury sends a note. They want testimony about a 2015 hush agreement. That's big. If jurors believe those NDAs were used to obstruct justice or hide illegal acts, it supports the case for an organized FIDA racketeering enterprise. By evening, it breaks. A decision on count 1, the racketeering charge. The official announcement is scheduled for the next morning. We prep sidebars. Alert editors, finalize graphics. Outside, the breeze cuts through the humidity. Streetlights reflect off news vans. The city holds its breath. Gene Deal's words ring louder than ever. He'll never walk free again. In just hours, we'll know if that's history or just a dramatic footnote. The aftermath will be enormous. If it's a guilty verdict, expect public statements, brand terminations, playlist, purges, possibly entire sectors of entertainment rearranged. Victims will begin rebuilding. Civil lawsuits will multiply. If it's only lesser counts, sentencing still ranges past a decade. And if somehow he's acquitted entirely, the moral questions won't disappear. The stories are out there. The testimony happened. America's opinion has already shifted. At its heart, this case has become more than legal. It's a referendum on power, celebrity, and control. A look behind the red carpet curtain and a reckoning decades in the making. Decades. So as we close tonight, we leave you with the question we can't escape. Will this verdict convince the public that justice caught up to Diddy? Or will it ignite another wave of doubt? That influence still outruns accountability. Drop your thoughts below. We'll be back when the verdict lands. Until then, stay informed, stay grounded, and stay safe.